From my accent, you can probably tell that I'm from Brooklyn. I've done a few things in my life, and one of them is I studied biotechnology. One of the things that biotechnology taught me is there's an amazing and beautiful complexity to biological systems. Proteins mix up substrates, enzymes create reactions. All sorts of exciting things happen in the minutiae. And this happens in what I did for most of my life, which was film production. Lots of different people getting together in little groups, making wonderful creative developments. I've also spent a good bit of time as a marine biologist and a scuba diver. And you'll see why that's relevant in a few fish stories I have later. And nowadays, I'm an internet social entrepreneur. The reason I love the marine environment, the reason I think that images like this are so exciting, is because all these little polyps, these fishes, these colors, everything that you see, all these little fields, these tiny organisms, they're all acting out of little tiny microscopic needs sometimes, and they're feeding each other. It's a massive interconnectivity of process and beauty. Wouldn't it be wonderful if, like, the human experience had this much diversity? Wouldn't it be wonderful if technology had this much diversity? If human and business interactions had this much diversity? Maybe it can. But unfortunately, Tim Wu on this stage, I think it was last year, Tim Wu was the guy who came up with the idea of net neutrality, the term. And net neutrality is this idea that, hey man, the internet's meant to make everybody equal. We're meant to have peer-to-peer sharing, aren't we? We're meant to be able to find somebody, communicate with them, do a deal with them, create some value with them. But what's happening on the internet, because of network effect and various other processes, is you're getting massive monopolies. Google, wonderful. 80% of the share market. If you want to buy a song, you're most probably going to go to iTunes. Enormous monopolization. Not because there's nobody else around doing it. It's just the process. Facebook, social networking, tends to monopolize. We get a bit worried about this. Ooh, yeah, it's a bit scary. What are they doing to our data? It's not even. It's not everybody's even. There's these massive pillars. Well, on the other side of the ocean, of the world, last year, Rachel Botsman gave a talk, and I encourage you to see it because it's a great talk, about collaborative consumption. She wrote a book. And collaborative consumption, if you're not familiar with the term, is the idea that we don't need mass consumption anymore. We can't afford it. There's not enough world to go. And if you live like I do in New York, you most probably bought some furniture on Craigslist. You've met some people, some friends, through sharing. You may have been on Etsy or eBay. And you're used to this sort of peer-to-peer network. It's got social value. You get things cheaper. And one of the things that happens when we reduce and reuse and recycle and do this process, we redistribute. We can create more value. I've got a pen. You want to buy it? Pen works for two people, twice the value. Could have paid $10. Only paid $5. She paid me $2. That's good, right? The technology is changing the whole consumer behavior. It's changing the way we relate to each other. If you do something with me, I may trust you. I'm not just buying it from some big corporation. And this is really important. Back to the sea. This is my friend Wally. He's fantastic. I'm doing this as an analogy because monopolies kind of work like apex predators, right? This guy is really big. He's 100 foot long, right? He's 15 tons, right? He's got very few natural predators. He's a world-class swimmer. He goes from one end of the oceans to the other, right? But he doesn't really have much concern for plankton. Doesn't farm them, doesn't look after them. He's got a few critical points, right? Bangs and noises go off in the sea, might beach himself. So, even though he's the biggest animal that's ever lived, he's got some vulnerabilities. He might be the biggest animal, but he's not the biggest living organism. The biggest living organism in history is most probably this thing. It's called Pando. It's an aspen grove in Utah. Believe it or not, it's 60,000 years old. It weighs 6,000 tons. It even competes with itself for light and air and water. It's changed over the years. Different parts of this same being have changed in different ways. And because it's so old, we know that it's really well structured. It's going to survive a long time. Wouldn't it be interesting if business and economics and our solutions worked more like this and less like the top-down approach that we saw in the whale? I love this. This is fantastic. Well, it's fantastic if you're not an ant. Because what they did was they poured concrete down this ant hole. And then they dug it up. It's a megalopolis ant colony. You look at that and you go, wow, some architect has designed this for the ants. No, 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 no. The ants did it themselves. They self-policed it. They say, hey, ant, you're going the wrong way. We're digging the tunnel this way. Go away. They build up little nests where they have baby ants. They build up fungal gardens. If you look at these things, they're amazing. They're like wonderful tree fractal structures. And this is what simple decisions by simple beings do to create commonality and opportunity for the whole. It's really quite amazing. This is what's happening today. I think this is the frontier of business. It's what I call a coopopolis. Different people call it different things. The mesh, collaborative consumption, peer-to-peer networking. eBay. Did you know that eBay, 0.3% of US citizens have their primary income from eBay? If I wanted to create a second-hand business that was going to employ 1 million people in the US in 15 years, do you think that's possible with a top-down approach? I don't. Airbnb, I love Airbnb. Guys came around New York a few years ago. Within 4 years, they've created the largest brand in bed and breakfast. Zipcar you're familiar with, but Zipcar don't own all the cars. Took them 6 years to get 1,000 cars, I believe. Whipcar allows you to share your neighbor's car. 6 months to get 1,000 cars in the UK. The rise of coopopolies, watch out. Because this is the mother of all sharing platforms. We've got to get smart with this. This isn't my idea. It's a lovely idea from Lisa Gansky, who's also a TED speaker, by the way. And we think like this, we go, this is wonderful. The world can be a great place. We can all share with each other. Yeah, we're going to buy some great things from the people who make it. And that's fabulous, but it isn't. Because there's a big elephant in the room. There's a massive problem, and the problem is cost. The problem is so huge you cannot imagine it. You may think $50 a month is a lot to get your broadband access. You may think, oh, maybe I can get a cheaper line with the Time Warner thing. Maybe it's $30. That's still an enormous amount of money per month, every month, if you're only earning $30,000 a year. And by the way, 7% of the US population would get online and are not online if the cost was $10. So I'm very, very concerned about the price of the internet, not just in America, but on the world. If we are going to solve and use peer-to-peer sharing and use these fantastic connective cooperative platforms in India, in Africa, in South America, in the Bronx, in East Harlem, everywhere, for your neighbor and your sister's brother and everybody else, we've got to get smarter about just letting these top-down companies go in and say, we're going to control everything and you're going to pay what we think you should pay. I don't believe in that. And we've got to solve this problem. Last reference of fish, by the way. In order to help people use the greatest fishing coach, the internet, that there has ever been, and allow them to be creative, allow them to come up with innovation, we need to change the way we do things. That's why today we're announcing the beta launch of KeyWifi. KeyWifi is the world's first peer-to-peer platform that allows anybody, anywhere, to share, rent their Wi-Fi, their internet connection to anybody within range. And like all these shared platforms, it's a social system, not just a technical one. You actually might notice it in the foyer. It says, text TED to a number. You'll get a password because we've allowed you to, because we love you all, right? Thanks, Chris. And what we do is each person sees where the hotspot is. They find out a little bit of information about the person who's got the hotspot. They can then go there and get that internet access. What this means is that not just all you iPad users can run around all over the place going, oh, I've got Wi-Fi, right? But you can actually sell it. None of you are at home at the moment. You might have some friends who are at home. But look at that, 400 internet hotspots around New York and the US, theoretically available for somebody else at very cheap rates. And you control it. You can say who's going to come on, who isn't going to come on. I don't like that guy. Oh, I like that guy. Oh, she's always good, right? So you get to know people you're sharing with, like any shared platform. This is what we can do in the Bronx. 6 o'clock in the evening, tire shop closes. He uses it to, get connected, to order some parts or whatever, some accounting. But at night and on the weekend, he doesn't need it. So all these kids, 15-year-old kids that are on the wrong side of the digital divide, for 9 cents a day or $10 a month, can get access to his hotspot. Now, multiply that by a few million times. That is pretty powerful. That I sort of slightly contradict Tyler, because I think this sort of peer-to-peer innovation is extremely significant for the future of the planet. It's a small place. And if that's what we can do in the Bronx, maybe this is what we can do with the world. Thank you very much.